Thank you for your attendance for the March meeting. Environmental and Community Services. Do we have any applications for attending meeting via audio link, video? No. Any apologies? Any declarations of interest?
You received, Madam Chair.
Public participation.
Would you like me to start by giving an
I think
overview
give
of
an
this
overview
application?
and then when he calls in, we can jump to that. That'd be great. Thank you, Matt.
Not a problem. Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is a development application for a takeaway food and drink premises at number 2 Mccoy, Diva Street in Scone. The application was received on the 27th of March of 2020, so it's been in the system for quite some time. I understand there's been a bit of back and forth with the applicant requesting additional information. And I guess it got to the point where staff felt it was time to put the application up to the committee and council to make a decision because it has been taking some time, and we felt the applicant wasn't prepared to address some of our concerns. So the site is zoned IN2 light industrial, and I think we've got it up, if we can get it up on the screen here. So it's at the northern end of Scone, on the corner of Mccoy, Diva Street and Kelly Street. The proposal that the site comprises an area of 1,972 square metres and with a 31 metre frontage to Mccoy, Diva Street. The application proposes a takeaway food and drink premises and includes the construction of a new separate ingress and egress driveways out of the site. The building itself, which has 2 drive-through lanes, and as well as car parking and site landscaping. So if we just turn to pages 8 and 9 of the agenda, see the site layout there. So it's not a huge site, and there's limited parking on the site. The application was notified for 14 days and no submissions received. Our concerns with the proposal relate to off-street car parking. There's a shortfall in parking when you assess it against our DCP. There's also, we had issues about the delivery area, safe potential traffic conflict when vehicles are approaching the delivery area and reversing into that space, potential safety issues for pedestrians. There was a non-compliance with the provision of a rainwater tank. We require a 40,000 litre tank. They're only proposing 10,000, but we're happy, we're comfortable with that. There was no major concerns with that. The other thing was the bicycle parking and pedestrian access we felt wasn't adequate. If you look at the plans, there's no dedicated footpath off the street. So if you have vehicles that are parked out in the street, people have to walk up the driveway into the shop. And given the shortfall in parking, I guess there is potential for that to occur, people having to park out on the street. This site, we think, would attract quite a lot of travellers heading south on the highway. That are probably more likely to stop and want to have a meal there rather than go through the drive-through and continue on. So I think parking is probably an important issue that needs to be given consideration. So we've recommended refusal of the application for a number of reasons. One is that it doesn't comply with the off-street parking space requirements. The second one is that the loading and unloading bay is not designed to ensure that vehicles can manoeuvre in and out without conflicting the movement of other vehicles. We believe there's insufficient information has been provided to establish whether or not the bike rack complies with the Australian standards. The other issue is that the proposal does not satisfy the DCP in respect to access for pedestrians and cyclists. And we also feel the development is likely to cause traffic conflict and have adverse impacts on pedestrian safety and access. So we've recommended refusal. As you're aware, the applicant's representative has provided a submission yesterday requesting that the committee consider some mitigation measures, I guess, to address those issues, looking at reducing the number of seats in the restaurant, therefore reducing the demand for parking. I guess the other argument they're putting forward is that the parking does comply with the RTA guidelines, may not comply with council's DCP, but does comply with the RMS guidelines for parking. And I think, you know, obviously things like the bicycle parking area, they could potentially relocate that and demonstrate that they could achieve compliance with the standard. Pedestrian access is still an issue, I think, that needs to be addressed. So whether we need to require a footpath to be constructed from the street into the site is something we probably need to consider. So I guess that's probably an overall summary.
I'll just have a quick question in relation to the RMS and the council guidelines. Who overrides who?
I don't think it's a case of who overrides who, but I guess we apply our DCP. So that's all, yeah.
Okay, well, we've still got some time. We'll go around to councillors. Councillor Abbott.
Yes, thank you. So this has been put for, or that we've received this proposal because the RMS took away some of the original land, is that right? They acquired some of the land. So our objections are because of parking and because there's a traffic conflict with the delivery area. So is there any way that we can talk to the proponent and come up with some arrangement? Because I've read somewhere that the land, well, in the paper from Oliver McCarthy, it mentions that the land originally had been a large block, but because of acquisition, presumably for the bypass and development around the coming off the bypass, their block is shorter or smaller. So is there any way we can talk to the proponent to come up with a workable solution? Through you, Madam Chair.
Yep, through you, Madam Chair. I think there is that possibility that we can work with the applicant to try and come up with a solution. I think some of their suggestions are quite good about reducing the number of seats in the restaurant, for example, therefore reducing the demand for parking. I think their argument that it does comply with the RTA or RMS guidelines, you know, I think that's something we need to consider as well. I mean, the shortfall with our parking, I think, so I'm just looking at the report here, there's 12 spaces, the shortfall, when you look at this development compared to our DCP. So it was quite significant. I haven't got Oliver's submission in front of me here, but I think he indicated that if they comply with the, with these amendments, it would comply with the RMS parking requirements.
Yeah, and just one further question with in relation to the footpath and bicycle lane. That's maybe is something council should be thinking about, because we have a dearth of footpaths and bicycle lanes in Scone. So I think you mentioned something that we would need to put a footpath in because of the pedestrian access. I'm just throwing bicycles in there as well. But we probably should have better footpaths than we do anyway. Through you, Madam Chair.
Through the Chair, if I can just respond to that. So in terms of the footpath, I was referring to the footpath within the site itself. So from the street to the actual building, because at this point in time, there's no pedestrian access to the building from the street. And there may be times where vehicles have to park on the street because there's insufficient parking within the site and pedestrians have to walk into the site. So.
Are you the applicant? Yes. Right. Okay. Well, we might hear from you.
Can I actually ask a question, please? Through the chair, I just had a couple of concerns with this change of reducing the number of seats in the restaurant. It's actually against the purpose of having somewhere where people can stop and eat. So I'm not sure if it's actually the solution that that is actually viable for us, because we don't want people to be just getting takeaway and driving through. We want them to actually sit and rest. That's part of safe driving. And also, when it's suggesting that we propose delivery hours between 4 and 6 a.m, first of all, how will that be policed? And secondly, like today, the fellow who's supposed to be here is late because of traffic. We're not going to be expecting someone to wait 12, 20 hours for them to be able to deliver. They'll most likely be delivering, even it'll be late. So I think that's actually not, it's not something that I think that is a reasonable reaction to that.
I'll invite the applicant up if you'd like to speak, Mr. Burton.
Okay. Apologies for my lateness. Stuck in Summersby for an hour on the highway. Anyway, dear Mayor and Councillors, thank you for this opportunity to talk today. We very much appreciate it. My name's Chris Burton, and my family and I own and develop the Scone Business Park. We sent an email to Matt yesterday highlighting some of the council's concerns and how we would, some solution-based, how we can deal with some of those issues. First and foremost, we want to work with council and we want a partnership with council. So if what I want to get out of today is that we go back to the table, sit down and work out and work through your concerns. So our objective is to create an environment and attractive development. That position is a real gateway position for the park, with a takeaway food offering would be the best position and a draw card to the estate, and ultimately develop future growth within the park and the township. Obviously, the lot was a lot larger, but due to the compulsory acquisition of the RMS, the lot is substantially smaller. But we'll work with what we got. The development application, there were 4 issues raised by the council: off-street parking, pedestrian cycle access, potential pedestrian vehicle conflict, and large vehicle movement. In regards to the adequate off-street parking, I think you're right, Matt. We had 20 spaces and I think the requirement is 30. So I think there's a discrepancy of 10. The transport and RMS guidelines talk about, with the similar properties, having 20 car spaces. So we want to sit down with council and come to a number that works. The nature of the commercial takeaway in the premises with the number of car spaces is getting less because of drive-throughs and home-based deliveries currently. So the type of infrastructure for parking has decreased these days. And depending on the tenancy through the drive-through, there is an opportunity to reduce the space of the building, and which will reduce parking. So that's one option we can work through with council. The second issue, site is not accessible by pedestrians and cycleways. It's difficult to provide a solution with limited pedestrian and cycleway, with the connectivity between the estate and the township, but we're more than happy to look at that with council. With the potential pedestrian vehicle conflicts, we're happy to provide zebra crossings where nominated by council, and safe passage between areas of the building and migrate the risk. The fourth, with the large vehicle, the primary concern associated with the internal traffic, we can prepare a operational management plan procedures. I know that's been highlighted. That might not work if someone's late, and I was a prime example this morning. But there's always backup plans, and it is something that has been used in the council before as the guidelines of how they will operate. A lot of service stations in residential areas work like that as well. So we can work with council around those issues. I'm not the best public speaker. Management can identify traffic and pedestrian flows within the park. And we welcome the council's guidance on any alternative solutions. Same with external movements, with the driver operating the vehicle with slow speeds and judging the vehicle paths. Anyway, I want to thank you for the opportunity to talk today. We are pro-development in the right area. We've got a lot of growth happening out there, and we want to sit and work and partner with council and work together on this. So it's, yeah, and I thank you for your time. Apologies again for tardiness.
That's all right. Just stay there. We might have a few questions. So I'll go around the table again. Councillor Aber, did you have any questions?
Thank you, and thank you for your proposal. And I think that it could work, but obviously there needs to be further discussions. And I just want to ask through you, Madam Chair, so not really a question for you, Mr. Burton, but would this be the only food outlet on the industrial estate?
I believe so, Councillor Abbott.
Yes, so I think there is a definite need for convenience for people who work on the industrial estate. And from what I see, there is some tweaking that needs to be done, but thank you for bringing this to council because I think it could work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Campbell.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Chris, for bringing those things. Your presentation this morning, I guess the first thing I need to ask is, Matt, I thought that there was a food outlet and a service station just opposite there or alongside that site, which was alongside the Mccoy Diva roundabout, which I thought was approved. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, that's correct. There's a service station approved across the road.
And as part of that was a food outlet as well?
I believe so. Chris might know. It's definitely a service station with the retail component. I just can't recall. I think it did have a small food outlet as well. Yeah, look, thank you. I think that the council has highlighted some of these issues and suggesting your willingness to work through them. I'm just wondering whether or not that the fact that there will be two food outlets there, although you will not be selling fuel or electric charge or anything like that, charge station, they're right alongside each other. Is there sort of going to be a conflict? I guess that's a commercial question that you would have to answer as to whether that would be viable. That's nothing to do, I know there's nothing to do with council. But I also think that the matter brought up with the pedestrian cycle access, I think is important because of the fact that that's a good place to get a refreshment if you're riding a push bike or walking, but probably more of you're on a push bike. It has measures. I do agree with the fact of heavy vehicles coming in, et cetera, and it's only pretty small. I was up there this morning and had a look at the block and noted that the small area really to have a large vehicle. I know that there and people that drive is similar to as I went past McDonald's, the fellow that backed in there with his semi-trailer was obviously a very skilled driver. And so I guess that we could say that that could be minimised, but I think it's something that needs to be looked at and certainly addressed. So, yeah, I'd just like those things. Maybe defer this and perhaps come back with some of the conclusions later on.
Thank you. Councillor Flaherty.
First of all, I'd like to know, do you have any idea of what kind of food outlet it will be in terms of the popularity we might anticipate of clients?
Not at the moment.
Okay. And the hours of operation?
Look, it'd be as per the guidelines of council. It would be standard operations similar to McDonald's.
Yeah. So who do you see as being your main clientele there? People in the industrial area, people in the township, passing trade? What do you think the proportion of clientele would be?
It's hard to say with the bypass because the whole flow has changed. If the bypass wasn't there, it'd be more coming from Tamworth Way. But I think with the estate and the more development going on, I think there's a good mix of people that will be using that industrial area in the future.
So do you foresee local people in the industrial estate users probably using it more than people travelling?
I think once the industrial estate builds up, potentially, but I mainly see road users.
Yeah. And also with the pedestrian access, if it is a popular food outlet, lots of children walk to McDonald's.
Yep.
And so pedestrian safety is an issue that they will walk or ride their bikes out there. So do you think that there's room for that infrastructure with council to ensure that it's safe for particularly children getting there?
Yeah. We're not the experts in that. I think council are the experts with that. And we're happy to sit down and work with council on that. I don't know what solution there could be, but we're happy to work with council and help and assist and provide.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor McPhee.
So much for coming up today. It shows us that you really do want this to happen, and we really appreciate that. And just back kind of going on to from what Councillor Foddy was asking, my concern is because you're trying so hard to compromise and make sure that you get it and comply with the parking space, by reducing the seats, you're actually going to stop people from being able to come in.
Yeah.
So I think I think I'm in principle I'm for this, but I just think that we have to make sure, as we've all said, that we get these other things sorted. But when you're going back to work with us, I think maybe you should remember why you want it and how you're going to actually maximise your profit when you get it. So by reducing seats so that you can reduce car parks is actually going to maybe bite you in the proverbial later, because people are going to come. This is one of the first places they'll be able to stop before, the last place they'll stop before they get onto the bypass, which is probably in your mind, before they get to Sydney. So there's Aberdeen, but they'll stop there and then they'll want to sit down and have a rest.
Yeah.
So I think seating is actually really important. Which means the car parking is really important. So just maybe while we're having these discussions that you keep that in mind, so that when you if this goes through and you get to build it, you'll actually be able to benefit as much as possible from that. So I think a little bit more of reminding yourself of what the end goal is,
yeah,
so that when we're working together to make sure it works, that you're really happy with what the end product is. Thank you.
Councillor Collison, you got anything?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Look, again, thank you for your presentation. I think the application has certainly got merit, and I'm looking forward to some of those issues that council put to you to come and try and solve them, and see where we head from there. Thank you.
I've just got one quick one. Why did it take so long to reply to the application when it was put in 2020?
Sorry, reply to
A lot of the meeting what we asked for, because the application was actually submitted in 2020.
yes.
Yeah. So
It's been substantial RFIs requested by council. We had 2 DAs at the time. The priority was the service station. So
okay.
we didn't want, how do you say it, saving a bit of council's time.
I suppose the question's being asked so that if we defer it and we ask you to look with council, we don't want to see it sitting there for another 2 years. So is this something that could take place? You're ready to go now?
We're happy to sit down with council and and work through some of these issues for sure.
Okay, all right.
Now, Madam Chair, may I ask, and I also apologise when I spoke first, not addressing you, and I do apologise for that.
Fine.
If I have a question, look, regarding the street parking, if you have a car parked each side on that development there is really no room and not very much room to get a caravan or something in there. I just think it's pretty narrow. So that the entry there would have to be pretty wide to allow that to occur with safety.
I think the industrial widths, the roads are 19 to 20 metres wide. So that will give you 3 metre parking bays either side, leaving 12 metre carriageway in the middle, which will give you 6 metres lane width, which would I think would be adequate enough. The standard lane within a council road is 3.1, 3.2 metres. So, look, I think there would be adequate parking in the curb lane, but it's something we can look at.
Yeah, just further, Madam Chair, with that, I would question that, because if you bring in one of your semi-trailers or something, you have to go onto the right hand, the opposing side of the road to make that turn with safety if you've got a car parked, which would be parallel parking, I would assume, to get in there. So that's what I'm saying, is that would have to be, it may not happen all the time, but if it does, if you've got a lot of people coming in there and they can't park, they'll park parallel, and that's fine. But if you've got vehicular access, then I'm not sure whether it would have to be wider than standard, I suggest.
Yeah, no, point taken.
Okay. Everyone's had a question, everyone right? I'd like to make this happen and defer this recommendation for the applicant to find solutions by working with council. Anyone like to second that?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Second, Councillor Campbell. Any further discussion? All those in favour? Against? Carried.
Thank you.
Okay, so done our public, we've done our business items, we've done it back to front, but that's all right. Have we got any councillor questions quickly before we move into the other one? We're going to close this one first.
I've got
Yep, so is any councillor questions with this one? Yep.
Yes.
Councillor Abbott?
So through you, Madam Chair, we have resolved in our risk management plan that we would have a column for the environment. So I'm wondering when we will see this in all our reports to council, when that will come, what the impact is on climate change and how climate change will impact our report. So that's one question. And then I'd also like to know about the mattress collection. I think it's on the 4th of April. Who is collecting the mattresses and how are they disposing of the mattresses? And will it be safe? Because I understand that mattresses are a real problem in landfill, because over a period of time, different components of the mattress degrade at different times. But yes, basically they're my questions. Oh yes, and waste to energy. What are council's views on waste to energy, and are we looking at that at any stage? I'll say right now, I hope not. And my last question is, when will council take action on gas and looking at development and trying to move away from having gas installed in homes and other construction? Thank you, they're my questions.
Through you, Madam Chair. So the first two questions I'll take on notice, and I'll come back to you on those. The waste to energy question, council currently doesn't have a position on that. And the action on gas, I'll take on notice as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just mattresses, are you going to?
Yep, so through the chair, the mattress collection, so it'll be up to residents to take their mattresses to the waste facilities. But in terms of who is collecting those, will be a contractor, but I'll have to find out the details and come back to the committee. Thank you.
Councillor Campbell,
Thank
questions?
you, Madam Chair. Just one to Matt. The proposed service centre at Merriwall, what is happening there? Is it, I just noticed that in half that area, there's some other particular, well, will they be industrial, being probably leased? Is it going to go ahead or is it deferred or just what? Do you have any information on that?
Through you, Madam Chair, I don't have any further information on that at all.
Good. Councillor McPhee? Okay, got nothing else. Brings us to the end of the meeting. Meeting closed.